Have you ever thought about the life of the mysterious Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII? Anne was born in England in 1501, and she grew up in a family that was always looking to move up in society. After spending part of her childhood in Netherlands and then in France, she returned to England in 1522. Now a young woman, she had an education that was not common for women of her era. It didn't take long for King Henry VIII to notice her. Even though he really liked her, Anne said no to being his mistress, a choice that ended up leading to their secret wedding in 1533. With her charisma, Anne Boleyn became the Queen of England, but her time as queen didn't last long. Anne Boleyn's downfall was not a simple matter of infidelity. There were other forces at play. The charges brought against Anne were adultery, incest, and high treason. The accusations were severe and shocking, but the evidence was far from substantial. In many ways, these charges were a reflection of the political climate at the time, rather than an indictment of Anne's personal conduct. The man who played a key role in orchestrating these charges was none other than Thomas Cromwell, King Henry VIII's chief minister, and once a strong ally of Anne. However, as Anne's influence grew, so did their rivalry. Their disagreements on matters of state policy and the distribution of church wealth after England's break with Rome had turned their once cordial relationship into a power struggle. Cromwell, a master manipulator, saw an opportunity to consolidate his power by orchestrating Anne's downfall. He capitalized on the king's growing dissatisfaction with Anne and his desire for a male heir, a dream that Anne had failed to fulfill. Using the king's anxieties and the court's rumors, Cromwell constructed a case against Anne, accusing her of adultery with 5 men, including her own brother, and plotting the king's death. In May 1536, Anne was arrested and accused of high treason, adultery, and incest. The trial was the event, with most people believing that her enemies made up the charges. The evidence was based largely on testimonies extracted under duress and vague insinuations, rather than solid proof. But in the politically charged atmosphere of Henry's court, it was enough to condemn Anne. In the end, Anne Boleyn was a pawn in a larger game of power and politics. Her downfall was as much a result of her enemies' machinations as it was her failure to produce a male heir. Her punishment was to be executed by beheading, which she faced calmly. On the morning of May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn, who was once the most powerful woman in England, was executed at the Tower of London. Her last words were about her loyalty to the king, a last effort to keep her dignity in the face of her sad ending. Betrayed, disgraced, and finally executed, Anne Boleyn's life is a warning of the dangers of wanting too much power and how unpredictable power be. Her story shows us how quickly things can change, especially in the harsh world of royal politics. Anne Boleyn didn't live a long life, but she made a big difference in history. The changes she brought to religion in England were huge and groundbreaking. When she married King Henry VIII, it caused him to break away from the Catholic Church. This was the start of the Protestant Reformation in England. But religion isn't the only thing that defines Anne's legacy. Her biggest contribution might be her daughter, Elizabeth I. Elizabeth was born to a queen who would later lose her life. Elizabeth then became queen herself and ruled England for 45 years. This time is known as the Elizabethan era. Under her rule, England did very well. There was lots of growth in wealth, discovery, and culture. Anne Boleyn made big impact through her daughter. People are still fascinated by Anne's life and death. Her story of wanting more, gaining power, and then falling from it has inspired many books and films, and lots of discussions. Anne Boleyn went from being a queen to being called a traitor, but her story is one we won't forget in history.